Hi, my name is Alicja Johnson, and you're listening to Story to Screen.
Well, hello everybody, and welcome to a brand new episode of the Story to Screen podcast, the movie podcast where we review all different kinds of movies, new and old. I'm your host, Chris, and joining me tonight are two special guests. One is from the past. He is a film director and a writer. Please welcome back to the show, Kyle Prohaska. Hey, Kyle, how's it going?
Yeah, it's going good. Thanks for having me.
Sure. By the way, that interview on YouTube, the video is actually our most highly viewed interview on the show, actually. So that was a milestone for us, and I thank you very much for taking the time for that interview, which was about a year ago, around the same time, actually. Didn't Love Covers All come out around this time?
Yeah, I think it was about a year ago.
And so have you been dabbling with new film projects? Are you writing something right now?
I'm working on something, and it's been hard to figure out what exactly to do next, but been keeping busy, so that's good.
Yeah, okay. I know I know you've been away for a little while, and you also moved to Tennessee. I mean, what was that whole experience like?
It went well. I mean, it was kind of partially business, partially personal. So family's happy here; they're doing well, and it was the right choice. So we like it here.
Okay, is it pretty cold at the moment right now, or is it?
No, it's warm.
Okay,
yeah,
it's beginning it's getting all cloudy and murky down here, so the cold is going to hit us pretty hard down here pretty soon. So anyway, and also our second guest is a film critic. She hosts her own blog as well. Please welcome to the show, Alicja Johnson. Hello, Alicia.
Hey,
how
Chris.
are you doing? How are you?
I am great. Thanks for having me.
No problem at all. Alicia, for my audience who's not completely familiar with you, why don't you? I'm going to give the floor to you to talk a little about yourself. The floor is all yours.
So, my name's Alicia. I write for Relish and also my own blog, Real Red Reviews. I just really like movies. I like to write about them. And yeah, that's me.
Well, why don't you tell us a little bit about Real Red Reviews, because that's how I found you. I think I don't remember if you were following me on Twitter or if I followed you. I can't remember how that came all about, but I reached out to you to be on our show. But tell us a little about your blog a little bit. Like, what is it about?
So it's mainly just me reviewing the movies that I see. I don't have like a specific set list that I try to watch. It's really just my personal preferences. So like you're never going to find a horror movie on there because I can't do horror. I am absolutely terrified of horror movies. But yeah, it's just my personal thoughts and opinions on what I see on the big screen.
So not a huge fan. Don't tell me you don't like Jaws.
Oh, I like Jaws.
Okay.
See,
you're becoming my favorite now.
I love Psycho, and I have this weird obsession with the shower scene in Psycho, like just because it created the fact that the bathroom is scary in horror movies. If it's a horror movie and they pan to a bathroom, it's terrifying. You just know something really horrible is about to go down, and that is because of Hitchcock. Hitchcock,
that's it.
I like his name as Hitchcock. I think it sounds cool.
Yeah, there you go. Maybe that should be the next predecessor or something like that. So what got you into film criticism or that art specifically?
Well, mainly just I really liked writing. I really liked movies, and I'd kind of always been meaning to combine the two and start writing because that's kind of what I want to do with my life. And then finally, recently, somebody pushed me to actually create the blog, and I am quite grateful to that person because it's been a ton of fun.
Okay. Who inspired you, if I may ask?
It's this gentleman over at my associated site, Real Dude Reviews, Mason, and he's more enthusiastic about movies than I am, and so yeah, he really got me into it, and he got me to start the blog.
Okay. And where did the title come from, by the way? Real Red Reviews. Because you're obviously a redhead, and there's nothing to be ashamed of. There are very beautiful redheads in the world. Take Anne Shirley, for example, Anne of Green Gables. But what did that come from? The fact that your hair was red, or where did it come from?
Well, so Mason wanted to call his blog Real Dude Reviews, and he wanted me to call mine Real Dudette Reviews. And I was not too enthusiastic about that one. So
no.
I decided to go with Real Red instead, just because my hair has always been kind of a defining feature that people remember about me.
Okay. And what are some of your personal ambitions? Like are there other ambitions that you have besides doing film reviews and all that stuff? Like you maybe would like to host your own show, or be like a host on like Entertainment Tonight or something like that?
Well, I guess if I'm talking about ultimate dreams, if I can one day, I would love to host SNL. I'm a big fan of that.
Oh, cool. Do you have a favorite? Do you have a favorite person on the show?
Oh my gosh, it's so hard to choose. One of my all-time favorites is definitely Kristen Wiig.
Uh-huh.
Also, of course, Amy Poehler, Tina Fey, all of them. And right now, I'm a really big fan of Kate McKinnon. I love her Hillary Clinton impressions. Truly hilarious. I know some of the newer names might not be familiar, but yes, it's still funny.
No. Speaking of Saturday Night Live, I know we have a movie to review, but we can talk about this stuff. It's film and television and all this stuff. So, did any of you guys see the Michael Keaton Saturday Night Live from this year?
No.
I think I did see that one. I don't remember any of the skits from it, but if somebody reminded me of one, I might remember it.
Oh my gosh, Michael Keaton owned that show. I'm telling. There's a
he did the opening skit with everybody wanting to talk to him because he was Batman, right?
Yeah. But the funny part to me was when I think that the show came out around Easter time, and there was a little skit where he's going through an Easter bag, and he pulls out he brings out Friday, and he compares it to that movie Friday, which came out a couple years ago, and he says this is the best Friday. In correlation with Good Friday, he pulled out some Easter eggs, but he pulled out the best part to me, which it may be controversial to some people, but he pulled out unleavened bread. And
I'm Jewish, so I can appreciate that.
Okay. Well, then he says okay. We'll take no offense to this. He says, and unlike Jesus, he doesn't rise.
Oh.
I'm a Christian.
My gosh. I don't remember that, but that's hilarious.
That part, I don't know what it is, I thought that I was cracking up hysterically when I saw that part. It was so funny. But anyway, enough of Saturday Night Live, and but anyway, yeah. So you would like to host Saturday Night Live? That is really cool. That's really cool.
It's a big dream. Maybe someday.
Well, anyway, folks, tonight we are reviewing the Martian, the newest film from director Ridley Scott and starring Matt Damon.
Every human being has a basic instinct to help each other out. If a hiker gets lost in the mountains, people coordinate a search. If an earthquake levels the city, people all over the world send emergency supplies. This instinct is found in every culture, without exception.
At around 4:30 a.m., our satellites detected a storm approaching the Ares 3 mission site on Mars. The storm had escalated to severe, and we had no choice but to abort the mission. But during the evacuation, astronaut Mark Watney was killed.
I'm entering this log for the record. This is Mark Watney, and I'm still alive. Obviously. I have no way to contact NASA or my crewmates, but even if I could, it would take 4 years for another manned mission to reach me, and I'm in a hab designed to last 31 days. So, in the face of overwhelming odds, I'm left with only one option. I'm gonna have to science the shit out of this.
What you just heard was the trailer for The Martian. It was directed by Ridley Scott, and it stars Matt Damon, Jessica Chastain, Sebastian Stan, Sean Bean, and Kate Mara from Fantastic Four. If you remember that movie, or if anybody did go see that movie. I know I did. Anyway, that's not a really good movie. But anyway, Alicia, what did you think of The Martian? Starting off with your initial impressions.
Honestly, they made Mars look really pretty. Like, that's the first thing that comes to my mind. And Matt Damon does a fantastic job in it, and it's overall like a very just engaging film to watch.
Kyle, what about you?
I enjoyed it a lot. I thought it was one of the best movies I've seen this year. The reviews were really strong, so I was pretty excited going in. I haven't read the book, but I've known some people who have, and they talk about it. They loved the book. So, and then of course, Matt Damon's always almost always a home run, and Ridley Scott, this is kind of his territory. And I honestly, it's been a long time since he's made anything I really liked. So I was still nervous, but the reviews made it look like kind of a return to form, which it certainly was. So I enjoyed it overall. I thought it was a really great kind of showcase for everybody involved, it was thrilling, and yet it was patient, which was kind of nice to see. Where a movie that isn't afraid to kind of give you some space and actually, not trying to make a pun, but you know what I mean. The situation of the movie is so relatable and easy to kind of grab onto that. If movies that are about someone being stranded somewhere are not your thing, then it's certainly not the movie for you. But I think overall impression is that I really enjoyed it. It was a lot more fun than I thought it might be. It was a lot funnier than really almost anything I can think of that Ridley Scott has done before, and I think a lot of that just comes from the book. Kind of the spirit of the book is it kind of has fun. So I don't know. I enjoyed it a lot.
Alicia, have you read the book? By the way, that should have been my first question. By the way, have you read the book?
I have not, but everybody I went to see it with, they had read the book, and there were mixed opinions. A lot of them didn't like it, and they actually thought the movie was better than the book because the book gets too heady. It uses a lot of sciencey terms that normal people might not necessarily understand.
Okay.
So that's something the movie apparently did really well.
Yeah. Well, let me go ahead and finish off with my impressions. There are a couple movies this year that really, really, hit me that were like, oh man, this was just completely fantastic. And they really impact me in a certain way. And there have been a couple of those this year. And I'm proud to say that The Martian is another one of those movies that really, really sticks with you even after you're out of the movie theater. People, please go see this movie. It is a fantastic piece of filmmaking. The funny thing about The Martian, that when I went to go see this movie, I was expecting kind of something else along the line. I mean, it is and it isn't Castaway, and that's what a lot of people have been kind of comparing it to lately. What it has been Castaway, but and it kind of is, but it doesn't really kind of explore the psychological toll or the mental toll that it'll have on of being isolated and alone on an individual, which I kind of found refreshing. And I thought it was going to go that way, like it was going to be this, Ridley Scott was going to explore, like, this is what it's going to be like, if you are on this planet, what it's going to do to your mind and all that stuff. But he doesn't do that, which I found kind of refreshing for a change. And it worked because I wasn't expecting it. And the thing that shocked me the most was how funny it was. I mean, the comedy in the movie didn't feel like, just a joke for the sake of a joke. It felt like it derived from from a naturalistic standpoint, in terms that it felt like it was coming from, it would realistically come from that type of situation. You know what I mean, guys?
Yeah, like almost like the humor in it was sort of him, like, kind of just coping, if that makes sense. I'm not sure if that's what you were saying.
Yeah.
It's not forced humor.
Yeah, and that's the danger with movies like this. Sometimes they'll just try to throw jokes in here, just to try to make the situation funny. But what I find, which, by the way, let's just go ahead and talk about it. Matt Damon delivers probably one of the best performances in a long time. I mean, and he, the way that he just does the humor. I mean, especially when he reveals, when the humor finally kicks in. I mean, it's when he reveals, like, oh, I'm a botanist and all that stuff, and that's when people started laughing, and then the humor started pumping up from that point in time. But it felt natural, and it felt like maybe within the story, the confines of the story, it felt like he was trying to have a positive outlook on his situation to some degree, and trying to make the best of it, and just trying to make himself comfortable without without panicking, and without feeling like, oh my gosh, I'm stuck in this place, what the heck do I do, or something like that. It doesn't go that way, which was surprising for a change.
I think some of that has to do with just, the character. It's like Castaway is it's what happens when a more average Joe ends up somewhere. Which they still made him very smart. He was still a really smart guy, but the Martian is a very different kind of take on what happens. When someone is stuck in a situation like that, and I'd agree with Alicia that the humor seemed to be more like a coping thing, where since he couldn't really talk to people because there's nobody to talk to, talking out loud and talking to the cameras, knowing that someone's hopefully going to watch this later was kind of the thing that he used in order to kind of not keep himself alive physically, but just mentally. Like, you have to talk, you have to keep some sort of personality, or you do kind of go nuts. Mm-hmm. So I think that was interesting. But, like, if I found a speech, or not a speech, but a presentation by the writer to a college, or not a college, some sort of organization. I forget what it is. But you listen to this guy talk for like an hour, and he's really easy to listen to as he cracks jokes and tells the story about how the book came along and all this stuff. And I kind of realized, like, this is Matt Damon's character, like, clearly, like, the kind of humor that's in there, the kind of delivery and stuff. He must have just he had to have spent enough time with the writer to kind of not mimic, but be inspired to kind of play it that way, because they seemed very similar to me. Very, very similar, which I guess makes sense, given the fact that the guy wrote the book. But yeah, I found it to be refreshing as well on a lot of levels. But I do think the movie was patient enough to kind of make you feel the desertedness, though.
Yeah,
for sure.
Yeah.
So that it was just it was really good at everything it was trying to do. It really didn't make a lot of mistakes for me.
But okay, so let's go ahead and just say like the spoiler. We're lifting that up, so and we're gonna go into spoilers here, folks. So if you have not seen the movie, go see it as soon as possible. Don't see it in 3D. I mean, did any of you see this in 3D? Because I know it's been marketed.
I did, yeah. That was kind of the only option I had nearby. There were only like 2 showings in 2D.
Okay.
And I actually, like I said earlier, I'm not really a huge fan of 3D, but I found it to be really, really good in this, and that might be because, again, like, it was kind of the kind of movie benefited from it.
Okay.
The stuff I liked the least in The Walk that I talked about earlier was just the normal narrative stuff, but like once you're in an environment where 3D really can help with the experience or make it even better, it worked for me. So the big Martian landscapes and the interiors of the ships and the actual outer space, all that stuff worked really great in 3D. Okay. But I think it would have been a great movie either way.
Okay. Now again, we're the spoiler filter is up, so we can go ahead and talk about some spoilers. When this movie starts, you're automatically in the situation, or at least you're on the day that he's about to be stranded. You don't really get a sense of his character. You get more of you explore more his personality than his background. Movies like this, maybe like Gravity or a movie like Interstellar. It's funny, for the past 3 years, we've had all these science fiction, space movies, lately. And this one, I think I like this one the most. And this one, he doesn't, there's no like drama in his, besides being stuck on this planet, there's no really like, you don't really get a sense of his life on Earth or anything like that. Like he's not really confined in that type of mold of, oh, I had a really bad relationship, that's why I'm here, or my girlfriend hates me, my wife hates me, all that type of drama. Because typically these type of movies would do that, like Interstellar or even the Gravity. Did any of you guys? Where does this place for you? This particular movie place for you in terms of like Interstellar and Gravity? Like, do you think this one's better than those? Not as good, or what are your opinions?
This is extremely embarrassing. I have not gotten to see either of those movies. It's terrible. It's terrible.
It's okay.
I need to see them. Like,
it's okay. It's okay. That's fine. Well, what about you, Kyle?
I mean, what were the 2 movies you said? So Interstellar and which other one?
Gravity.
I think it's better than both of them.
Yes.
I think Gravity was very, very artsy, and it was still a really great experience. But I don't know if it was the strongest narrative in general. Again, it was just kind of very artsy and very atmospheric in that way. Yeah. Doesn't make it a bad movie, but like The Martian kind of brought together all the kind of pieces in a way that worked just far better for me. Like great story, great characters, great situation, and then also great technology and good science, and it kind of had all the pieces for me. So and then Interstellar is very still very big and epic, and plays with a lot of big ideas and stuff, but that movie also just didn't feel very cohesive to me. Yeah. So The Martian kind of felt like a much better crafted package.
Yeah.
For these kind of movies.
Yeah, and again, like tying it back to what I was talking about, it wasn't the character of Matt Damon isn't really, he doesn't have like any complexity to him, which I found kind of, again, very refreshing, and it was just nice. Were you guys kind of expecting that approach? I mean, when you guys saw the trailers, did you expect there would be a little bit more to his character besides this whole like kind of survival instinct, or were you kind of content with what we got with the performance and with the character?
Honestly, I would have expected a little bit more. Like, I was quite surprised that not even his parents were involved, because, you know, I feel like generally that's the time to show a person's family, you know, when they're missing in space and stuff. But at the same time, like you said, I think it was also very refreshing. Like, I like the fact that, it wasn't like, because of some character flaw, I'm in this situation. It was, wow, something bad happened to me, and now I'm in this situation. And so that was kind of nice. Like, it wasn't like he had to learn a lesson or anything. It was just, like, this is the situation I'm stuck in. Now you're going to learn about my personality as I try to get out of it. But like I said, I did find it weird that, like, we didn't really learn much about his family life or anything. Like, I know at one point he does, like, mention, you know, tell my parents I love them and I died for something I love if I don't make it. Like, he does have that moment. But that's really all you see of, like, his life outside of space. And that just kind of struck me as odd. Yeah. Like, it didn't detract too much from the film, but yeah, that was one thing I found odd about it.
Yeah. And you know what I'm sorry, Kyle, were you going to say something?
Huh? No, I'm trying to think of what I had in my head a second ago.
Sorry.
But I think he, you know, as a character, you know, you kind of have to remember where the source material was, like how you talked about it being very heady and stuff like that, and then, you know, like the movie is very much, I think, like a vehicle for that sort of thing. So it's just approaching it not as here's who he is in light of the situation at first. It's approaching it more mechanically, you know, where it's like this is a scientist who's put in a situation where he has to figure out how to solve problems, and I think that's where a lot of the book kind of focuses on, from what I've understood and read.
Okay.
But I think the human part comes in, like it works because it's just so easy, it's so primal, right? It's so easy to understand. Being 50-something million miles away from home is a terrible situation for anyone. You don't need a lot character-wise in order to root for this person. Doesn't mean you won't learn anything about him, but it's not like you need to know a ton about him in order to relate. You know, the situation's primal enough. But, you know, something that's funny is you mentioned the trailer, and in the trailer, if you go back and watch it after this, you'll actually see that they cut to a screen of a woman and a baby with his hand like on the screen, kind of stroking it, and then they cut to him looking upset in the trailer. Right when the like music swells, so they try and like make it look like he has a baby in the trailer, which is what I thought. And then you go see the movie, and the shot that they used is one of the other crew members' family.
Okay. Yes, that's true with Kate Mara and Sebastian.
Yeah, so I found that it was actually, what's the guy's name? Johansson? Or no. Sebastian. Oh gosh, I don't know. One of whatever their names are, but the one guy that has like a ton of kids, I think, or it might have been Michael Pena's character's family. I think that's what it was. The Martinez guy.
Yeah.
So yeah, it was just funny to me that like in the previews they were trying to kind of infuse it with a little bit more humanity, but as a movie you didn't need that off the bat. But I did like that you learned more about him. Like the stuff that you learn about him as a character is how he handles the situation.
Yeah.
As opposed to there being some sort of massive setup, because you're on the planet right away. Like the first few minutes of the movie, like the situation is very clear.
Yeah. There's no like, you know, we're on Earth and then gearing up and then exploring a little bit of the characters and their mindsets and all that stuff, and then lift off, and then we're here on this planet, and then okay, all this stuff happens. We don't get into that. We automatically. I don't know if that's how the book actually starts. I'm just going off by what's in the film. But you're set on Earth, and it works. I mean, I think maybe because it's Matt Damon, the character is Matt Damon, and you don't really care about wanting to know about his past or anything like that. You're just along for the ride, and it was just refreshing in a weird way, because I wasn't expecting all this stuff, you know. Now, one thing though I will say, I thought the movie was slightly lacking in, but you know, not necessarily in a bad way, was some intensity. I thought there was going to be a little bit more suspense, and not that there wasn't, but like the moment when he gets stabbed with that what was it, his the little wire. It's like when he wakes up and finds he's stranded on the. That was just really, really nerve-wracking right there.
Oh my god.
Oh my gosh. And then he
could not look at the screen.
Well, you're a girl. I mean, you know, what can you expect? You can't take blood or anything like that. So
I guess so. Ladies, beware.
Yes, beware. And that was chilling. I mean, that's like, okay, that's Ridley Scott right there doing something really intense, and then he's getting it out, and then there's still some more parts in him, and he's doing the self-operation. That was great, and I thought we were going to get more moments like that, but we didn't. And again, that was another thing that I was like, okay, there wasn't more intensity moments like that. Okay, that's fine. You know, that doesn't need to happen. Were you kind of shocked that there was the lack of intensity in the movie, or were you kind of fine with that aspect?
I was okay with it, actually, because like where there was no intensity in the middle parts and stuff, there was a lot of intensity at the end, and I guess you would expect that, but like I was literally on the edge of my seat towards the end. Like it had so much built up tension, and I think a lot of that was because of the lack of intensity from earlier. But like I agree with you. The opening where he has to remove this wire that he's been impaled with, like that was like horrifying, but also really, really well done. And I guess the thrill that comes later in the movie is not as much like that, but it certainly is, like, as I said, it's very tense. It's got a lot of, you know, you're biting your fingernails. It's nerve-wracking.
Yeah,
like,
it was.
I was just so engrossed in the action that was happening. Like, it was insane for me.
I was pretty nervous the entire time, and in terms of the intensity, I guess it just kind of depends on the viewer, because the opening of it with him doing surgery and stuff on himself is intense, I feel like, for anybody, but depending on how you feel about the rest of the situation, like I never felt like, oh man, where's the intensity, because the whole time I was kind of wrapped up in how fragile the whole situation was, where I was constantly waiting for something to go wrong. You know, I was waiting for something to tear or something to break or something, because he had so little to work with that he couldn't afford a single mistake. Like the urgency of that, it almost be like you're watching somebody do really complicated surgery, you know, on the brain or something, where like one false move, right?
Yeah.
It's weird, I think, sometimes with movies like this that happen in space and the kind of environments they're in, where like if you were to swap it out with Earth, you don't have the pressure problems, you don't have the lack of resources, you don't have, you know, a lot of the those kind of problems. So like even when he was just walking around and there was nothing, quote, going on, I was nervous. Because I was just waiting for anything to happen, because anything could have happened, as opposed to, you know, I mean, that's kind of why Gravity was tense, right? Because it definitely had more sequences that you would maybe call intense.
Yeah.
But even just like an example of a scene in The Martian that was super intense for me, that doesn't look like much, is when one of the crew members is floating around on the outside of the ship and he has to make his way to the other side.
Yeah.
And I know, and he knows, that all it takes is bumping into something the wrong way and he's toast. Right?
Yeah.
If he bumped into something with enough force where he doesn't have anything to grab onto that's nearby, he's done. Because he'll just float forever. Right? So any moment where someone's floating like that and they're getting close to that bar that they really need to grab onto, for me, I was like, that grip makes me tighten up my fists because I know that death is so stinking easy out there. That's what I'm thinking in my head the entire time. So that, I don't know, that's kind of what was on my mind most of the time and why I never felt like, the intensity needed to get, bumped up, I guess. It just never, that's why it didn't bother me.
Well, you just mentioned that moment, Kyle, the Sebastian Stan, aka the Winter Soldier, flying in space. There you go. I thought when Kate Mara actually kisses him on the bridge, I thought he was a dead man. Did anyone get that idea? Did anyone get that idea that once she kisses him, that he was a dead man? I'm like, okay, Sebastian Stan is dead or something like that. I
felt like, again, I guess it kind of goes back to what I was just saying, but yeah. I felt like anybody could have died at any moment, because it's like the speech he gives at the end, before the movie's over, which is, it's space, it doesn't cooperate, like count on there being a moment where everything goes wrong and you have to figure out how to fix it. Space movies are weird, and these kind of movies are weird in that you can be in an environment that's 100% silent, where there's nothing threatening you that is like coming at you, or something that's chasing you, like a typical movie or something like that. It could literally just be a rupture in your suit, right? Yeah. Or it could literally just be a little bit of a crack in something that you don't know about. Where you'll literally implode, or you'll suffocate immediately, or whatever else. Like all it took for what was it called, the hem or something? I think it was called the hem. All it took for all of his crops and everything to be destroyed and everything else to be destroyed was that one little tear that happened in the siding. Oh yeah. Of that one container.
Yeah, I thought that was going to be a moment where it was going to be a race against time. Like, okay, this crew is going to have to go back. I thought, like, he would only have, like, 20 days or something like that, and they would need to, like, the crew on the ship would need to go back and save him and all that stuff. I thought that's where it was going to really, the intensity was really going to kind of increase. But no, he still manages to prosper in that situation.
And that's because, like, that thing that he's in it's not like an oxygen tank where if there's a hole in it, it will just slowly leak. All it takes is one rupture and all the pressure, right, is completely destroyed. The pressure that makes it livable inside is ruined. All it took was one hole for everything to explode, basically, like it did. And immediately all his stuff, all his crops froze, away. All the bacteria, the atmosphere came in, like, it's just that's why it was freaking me out the whole time. Because I was feeling the intensity of, oh my gosh, all it takes is one mistake, right, to ruin everything. Probably the scariest part of the movie for me, which might sound weird given the ending and all that, but really the thing that bothered me the most, like the kind of like goosebumps, is the moment where he patched that thing that exploded. He patched the hole where that was with like plastic and duct tape, and then he repressurized the inside, and then he goes and looks through and counts his potatoes. But I don't know if you remember, but the entire time they made the sound of the flap of the plastic going back and forth really loud.
Yeah, and
every time it flapped, it was like the Jaws moment of like the dun dun, because. And I think they did that on purpose. And I think I remember there being a moment where he was just like closing his eyes, frustrated by the noise, because with every noise you thought it was going to tear.
Yeah.
And then he was going to die immediately, or die really, really quickly. So yeah, that's I don't know. That's why the movie was intense for me.
I wanted to say, you brought up the music, just in general, a general comment. Harry Gregson Williams did a fantastic job with the score. I really enjoyed that. And I like the fact that it was kind of a mix of the disco soundtrack and
Yes.
also just like the scored music, like the soaring orchestra sound. That was brilliant for me. I loved it. And, like you said, like they really used the music to set the mood, which is, what the music should do. But I just thought it was done especially well in this movie, and I think it did help with the overall intensity.
Now, one thing I did want to bring up, we were just talking about, kind of nature being the antagonist of this film. Mother Nature and science, that was all against him, and he was trying to cope in that situation. Who I thought was going to be another antagonist of this movie? I thought Jeff Daniels, for some reason, was going to be the antagonist. But no, he wasn't, which was kind of interesting. I thought the Earthbound stuff with like all of NASA I thought that was going to be probably where like the complex, the complexity was going to kind of come in. Maybe man trying to debate whether or not is he worth it, is he worth saving, and there was some of that. But they didn't really, I would say, like explore. They didn't really explore a lot of that, but they really made it. They didn't do there's this really great movie from the 1949 called Ace in the Hole with Kirk Douglas. Did any of you heard about that movie or seen it?
Have not.
Ace in the Hole. Okay, it's a great movie about enterprising through tragedy, and I thought for people trying to make money off of this big tragedy like that, and I thought the movie for some reason with all like the NASA aspect was going to do that, but no, NASA is very supportive. It's just ethically just trying to decide what to do in this situation, which it kind of made it give it a certain reality to it, and it didn't feel antagonistic, which was kind of refreshing for a change. What did you guys think of the NASA subplots?
I personally thought that Teddy Sanders, when he was trying to veto the proposal of using the ship that was coming from Mars to rescue what's his name, Mark Watney, I thought that NASA was absolutely right, and I kind of thought that Sean Bean was a bit of an antagonist because, like, the whole time they're trying to say it's not bigger than one person, or no, it's. Am I getting this backwards?
No, I think...
they're trying to make the point, like, well, NASA's point of view is that this whole thing is bigger than one person, and we shouldn't lose 5 astronauts so that we can save one. Or, like, if we do lose the 5 astronauts, we're not even going to save the one. And so I really thought that, like NASA was very much the protagonist, and these evil mutiny people were like, I mean, obviously they're not actually like evil, and their hearts were in the right place, but it really would have been better for them, just thinking about like for the greater good, it would have been better for them to just save themselves, as like the general idea. Am I making sense?
No. You're making sense. I totally get where you're coming from. I mean, well, here's the one thing too with NASA. I mean, they didn't tell. I mean, what was it? They were like the crew, Jessica Chastain and her crew. They were like 2 or 4 months from Mars, and they didn't tell them during that time that Matt Damon, I was going to say Mark Wahlberg, he ain't in this movie. Matt Damon was...
I've always thought they look alike.
Oh, no. I think Matt Damon is the superior actor.
Oh, no, but I'm like, just they look alike to me. Like, definitely Matt Damon's better, but...
Well, Mark Wahlberg shot Matt Damon down in Departed, so there you go. But where was it going? No, they didn't tell him that, and that was an interesting kind of ethical situation, But they didn't want to do that because they didn't want to make them feel guilty or to make them make them feel like, have their conscience, corrupted in some way where they have to feel guilty. There were the NASA stuff. I feel like they did put them in a noble mentality in these kind of real ethical situations. They just didn't know what else to do in those situations. Kyle, do you want to comment on the NASA stuff too?
I think Jeff Daniels kind of was he was the human face to the antagonism, I guess. Like, even though he was supportive, they still kind of made him the face of practicality, I guess. Mm-hmm. So that made him less likable, and I feel like he became more likable as you go. You don't necessarily love him or anything ever, I think, throughout the movie. But he's kind of the voice of practicality, I guess, of like, how do we do this, right? It's his job. Like NASA, he mentions early, NASA's like, this is a public organization technically. We have to be transparent, and you almost run it like a White House, right? So you got to be careful what you let people know and when, and what they do is also extremely delicate, right? So it's not necessarily wrong to wonder whether or not you tell people that are in a very expensive, very crazy situation out in space on their way home that they just left somebody behind who's still alive, right? So I can understand why you maybe wouldn't tell them or wouldn't want to tell them or would debate about why you would tell them.
Well, it's but there is something kind of real world about it, because it does kind of apply to the political aspects that are going on, like the war on terrorism. What decisions do we have to make? What choices do we have to make? What should we tell? What shouldn't tell?
And I think it really, it's like, it's very normal to wonder whether or not telling them would make them distraught enough to do something that they could kill themselves on accident, or you just, I don't know. I mean, it's a compelling situation because it's complex. It's not easy. And I think watching the movie, it's easy to just go, well, just make the decision, right?
Yeah.
Sure, go get him, right? But like, I think what something kind of in the bigger picture that the movie had me think about, which these movies always do, these sort of movies, is the concept of time. Like the idea of deciding as a group that we're going to be on the ship how much longer, right?
Yeah.
Like, and you only have 2 hours to try and tell a story. So, but that whole just, oh my gosh, the thought of being on a planet for, possibly 4 years alone, even if you could survive, right? There's so many things that happen in my brain right away that make me think, okay, even if I had all the food in the world and I was completely safe, I have to figure out a way to not go nuts.
Yeah.
That's scary enough for me. Even if we knew he was going to be okay, and the movie was nothing but how you cope, and that's all the movie was. I don't know if there's ever been, other than maybe Castaway.
Yeah.
There's not a lot of movies I think that would dig into that, but I'm glad this one didn't in this case. But yeah, and NASA, I think they handled it the way that they should. Where it's a complex organization with a lot of people who have a say, and there is that unfortunate delicacy that comes with doing stuff that out in the open.
Okay. You've seen Apollo 13, right, Kyle?
Yeah.
Is that concept kind of explored in that film with the stranded?
Not really, because that event was so kind of just consistently intense, where there was like an ongoing rolling problem. Okay. Of some sort that I feel like there wasn't time in the story to even deal with that.
Okay.
It was just a constant onslaught of problems that they couldn't fix themselves, and there was all these people on the ground, just like in The Martian, and trying to figure out, how do we do this? How do we do that? So I don't know. I just think it handled the situation well enough. But Jeff Daniels, I think, helped help balance things out a little bit. Where if he was just a super energetic, like non-antagonistic guy or non-practical, I felt like the movie would have been missing something.
Yeah, I liked his cold type of demeanor. It kind of made him feel more level-headed. He was more he kind of gave it that more businessman.
Yeah, like you almost need somebody like that sometimes in a position like that so that you don't make rash decisions. It's not necessarily saying that that person would make a bad moral choice, but they're going to make sure that they filter it through enough, layers so that you don't make a stupid decision. Because again, like what they do, by they I mean like in the world of the movie, but also in real life with astronauts, what they do is so delicate that you would have to think everything through slowly, even though your emotions would want you to like just go get the person.
Yeah.
Right?
There has to be like a logical process. I mean, and that just applies to a lot of not just politics, war, but it just applies to every situation. Like rescue situations. Sure. People, trying to rescue people from sea or these, earthquakes. Rescue teams. Etc. I'm just trying to think of something else. Were there any like other surprising or things that you really liked about the movie that stood out to you? Guys, let's start with Alicia. Was there something that you really liked and that really stood out to you the most?
I really thought the supporting characters were good. Like that didn't stand out to be the most. Like, but I know that it can be tough when it's a movie that's really centered around one person. It can be tough to sometimes have good supporters around there, but like Kristen Wiig's character was great. That kid who came up with the idea, I do not remember his name, but the one who came up with the idea of the plane, or not the plane, the ship.
Sure,
circling. Yeah, turning around and going back to get them. Like, yeah, I thought that his character was really good. It's a significant character, but he didn't like take up the entire story, but he was still like entertaining to watch. And I'm actually not familiar with the actor who played him. I want to look that up.
I think I've seen him in like on some television, like cop shows or something like that. So probably, but yeah, I was kind of. Well, one great thing, I mean, it was great to see Sean Bean, and I love the little Fellowship of the Ring reference. Everybody in my theater, when they mentioned the Council of Elrond and Fellowship of the Ring, everyone kind of like, he played Boromir in Lord of the Rings. The funny thing too was that Sean Bean doesn't die anybody.
I know, it was crazy.
That's one thing that did shock me was that there are no casualties in this movie at all. I mean, unless I may have missed something, I don't think there was one single casualty at all.
Nope.
No, not at all. Which was again surprising and refreshing in a good way. I mean, I thought the people who I thought were gonna die were Sebastian Stan. I thought maybe Jessica Chastain's character was gonna die, or she was gonna be the one that was gonna get left behind and all that stuff, and that Matt Damon would live. I
kind of got that sense too.
Yeah, I mean, let's go ahead and talk about the ending. Matt Damon manages to survive. He gets back to Earth, but did we see it all coming? Did we all think he was gonna survive? I kind of had a feeling this guy's gonna live. I kind of saw that coming from a mile away. But again, it was just taking that journey through the movie that made it just rewarding just to get up to that point. Did any of you were any of you guys shocked that he didn't die?
I got the same sense you did. Whenever there's a film that's being narrated in the first person, kind of, and I know the book was narrated in the first person, I always kind of feel, well, this guy has to live, because otherwise, like, they're not going to say, oh, he's telling this story from beyond the grave. But I did think that Lewis, Jessica Chastain's character, I thought she might be a casualty. But like you said, it definitely was very refreshing that there wasn't some big dramatic death. Like, I really think that would have made the movie almost too long and might have made it drag a little bit. So I think that they really did a good job keeping it emotional, but without killing anybody, and that was very nice for a change.
It's very rare. It's very rare for a movie to do that. What about you, Kyle?
What was the initial question? Sorry.
You weren't listening. No, no. It was the shock that there wasn't really any casualties, and that maybe Matt Damon.
Oh, that's right. Okay.
Matt Damon didn't die.
I always thought he was gonna get saved. I think just because that kind of seemed to be the driving force of the movie. Like it had a lot more to do with how than whether or not it might have happened. Like it doesn't mean I still wasn't nervous in those ending moments and stuff, but it just felt like mentioning Jessica Chastain's character, like I wouldn't have liked the movie at all if she died in order for him to live. Like that was not the setup,
Okay.
That just would have been like a really weird curveball. Like normally when something like that happens, it's because you have kind of set up the relationship where that person is perfect to sacrifice themselves for that person. So that just would have been weird, given how the movie had played. The point was to lose nobody, right?
Yeah.
Not to go back as a team and then basically end up with the same number coming home.
Yeah.
Just swapping out one person for another person, like that just would have been weird. So, it was. I don't know. It never bothered me, and I guess watching it, I always felt like, oh, he's probably gonna get saved. Like it would just be weird if he wasn't.
Yeah.
I don't know. It would have been really terrible to just have the movie die, or have the movie end on a downer like that, where something goes wrong and he just floats out into space. Like that'd be terrible.
But at least he would be like Iron Man.
Yeah.
Right. And again, like it's something I think that we should probably just discuss briefly is like how fun. Like the movie wasn't afraid to have fun. Like the whole Council of Elrond thing is funny. Like the humor in the movie was, but like beyond just like the typical humor, some of the stuff that maybe another movie would think to do. I just think overall the movie had a lot more fun to it than would be typical for a movie this kind. And I thought it's actually a little out of character for Ridley Scott.
Yeah.
It's not really normal for, like, I saw some reviews saying, and I agree, that it feels like one of his warmest movies.
Yeah. And
it feels very warm and like inviting, and yet the situation's terrifying and it's isolation and all this other stuff, and yet with the music, right? The disco, like they didn't stop. Remember the song at the end of the film in the credits was "I'm a Survivor," right? Is that what it was? Was it?
Yeah, I think so.
It's just like it had a self-awareness to it that was like really refreshing. I mean, the most refreshing thing to me outside of everything else was just. Was that aspect of it, that like it wasn't afraid to have fun, wasn't afraid to poke fun at itself.
Sure.
And I think a lot of that again is just like that's the spirit of the book. There's just like constant jokes from what I've been able to glean from it online and stuff. Like the book is just a constant stream of like funny pop culture references and all sorts of just funny ways to say things.
Sure.
So yeah.
I need to read the book sometime. Well, let's talk about Ridley. One last thing real quickly before we start wrapping up. Ridley Scott. Again, you just mentioned this is probably one of the better films that he's done in a long time. I personally think this has been his best film since Black Hawk Down. Everything else he's done, I mean, with the exception maybe like American Gangster, everything else just hasn't really stuck with me. I mean, like especially like the past 3 years in his career. I mean, he did. What was it? What did he do again? Prometheus, the Counselor, and Exodus: Gods and Kings. Just not very good and really disappointing movies. And I just, I don't know what it was with those situations. I don't know if the stories just weren't. Well, the stories just had so much potential. They just didn't translate very well. Where would you guys? Where would this movie rank for you in terms of in the Ridley Scott filmography? Where would you rank this?
For me, the last Ridley Scott film I saw was actually Gladiator, and I thought it was fantastic, but I would say this is definitely above that one, and I can't quite remember the other Ridley Scott films I've seen, but I know Gladiator was one of his better ones.
Have you seen Alien at least?
I have not. I know. I have a long list of films I need to see.
Me too. So don't feel too bad. But okay.
Trying my hardest.
What about you, Kyle? Where does this rank for you in Ridley Scott films?
I think I agree with you that I think it's his best movie since Black Hawk Down. I mean, American Gangster I've seen that movie and I know it's a good movie, but I honestly don't remember much about it. But Black Hawk Down I've seen multiple times. I think it's definitely one of his best movies. Like Alien, of course, Blade Runner, of course, Gladiator, of course, and then I feel like the only other ones that are of note to me are Black Hawk Down and this one. Yeah. So it's in his top 5 movies for me.
Have you seen Duelists? That was his first film.
What's that?
The Duelists. Have you seen that one? That's his first.
No,
film.
I haven't seen that. No.
Check it out. It is great. It's such an interesting film because it's sorry going into this real quickly, but it's a Napoleonic era, drama where these two soldiers just come into conflict for 10 years because they're just mad at each other, but it's a really great little drama. And just to see that a movie like that and then him doing his next movie was Alien, if you watch those movies back to back, it's like, wow, I can't believe this is the same director.
Right.
But
I think his, that surprisingly I wasn't scared to go see the movie, and I think that just happened. And I'm big on reviews, so if the reviews are good, that gives me a lot of confidence. But when I first heard that he was doing yet another sci-fi movie from Ridley Scott, I was kind of like, oh, okay, I guess we'll see, because a lot of his movies for a long time, for almost 10 years, or at least 10 years really, have been just, to me, they've been bad. Exodus, Gods and Kings, I was just like, how in the world, did this come from the same person? But I get that happens. He's had a long string of movies that just they didn't review well, and they didn't actually do that well either. So it's nice to see him back in the zone of where I think he was always successful, and that was in the sci-fi area of things.
Well, that begs this question, because right now he's getting a lot of press for the Prometheus 2, which I think it's being called Alien: The Lost World, something like that. Am I correct?
Paradise Lost.
Paradise Lost. Okay, I think it's Alien: Paradise Lost. I think, because I remember Alien. Does this movie give you the confidence for him to do that film?
No, not really. I think I just need to see, because it's like this, I don't know, the trajectory of someone's career is always really interesting to look at. I feel like Ridley Scott is one of the best filmmakers in film history, but just like anybody, you have no idea. It's a total hit or miss. He's not somebody who's just hitting solid homers every single time. No. There's very few people that do that.
Yeah.
Especially given his track record, it could be, The Martian could be it could be a lot of years before we see another really, truly exceptional movie from him. You never know.
He probably won't be alive in the next 10 years as he's up there.
Yeah, he's getting really old. So, The Martian might be one of his last truly great movies. It might be. You never know.
Yeah.
But I'm going to go see what he makes. So it's not really going to matter. Ultimately, we're all going to find out.
Alicia, did you see Prometheus by any chance? And if so, are you kind of confident with him going with Prometheus 2 or Alien: Paradise Lost?
I did not see Prometheus, but given that the first one was not well received, I don't know about the second one. It's like the fact that they're making a second Fantastic Four, and that movie did terribly. So I don't know why. No, you're gonna rub salt in the wound. So if this first Prometheus was unsuccessful, I don't know what he's gonna do differently to make this next one better. Yeah. So, I'm not gonna see it. Okay. I'll just be honest. Movies are expensive.
Yeah, it's something that I would say, I guess, is that it kind of bums me out that some really great directors get sucked into doing, massive franchises. because, like somebody like James Cameron, where he could do all sorts of different kinds of things, but for years and years and years now, all he's going to be doing is Avatar. It kind of bums me out to see somebody like Ridley Scott want to go and do like a trilogy of movies. It's like, he's getting older. I'd love for him to just kind of fly off the handle and try all the stuff that you always wanted to try, but you never did. Maybe something awesome will fall out. But yeah, that just kind of, I don't know. I feel like The Martian was all I needed to get that kick of sci-fi from him that I wanted, and now I wish he would go do something different.
Yeah.
I almost don't want another Alien movie from him after how Prometheus went. It's like, go do something different.
Well, the biggest problem with Prometheus, I know we're getting kind of, we're talking about all this stuff, but the biggest problem with that movie was that he had Damon Lindelof, and Damon Lindelof, with just his recent track record, has not been a good writer. Let's just be very honest about that whole thing. I'm sorry, Alicia, maybe if you like Damon Lindelof as a writer, I'm sorry. But, if he, what's the name of the guy who wrote The Martian? Is it Drew Goddard, I think?
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think he's written movies, let me see real quickly. I think he's written movies such as, well, he's done a lot of TV. He's done like Buffy, Alias, Lost. So his more recent film.
Oh, he did World War Z.
I didn't see that one. Was that any good?
I heard it was pretty bad.
Okay. He did Cloverfield. He wrote Cloverfield, which was solid. I heard Cabin in the Woods was pretty solid as well. So I think, well, again, another thing with World War Z, Damon Lindelof. So Damon Lindelof is just not good medicine at all. But I think if he brought Drew Goddard in, I don't know if he's going to be writing the script or not, but for for Prometheus 2, but I think I wouldn't mind these two working together again, because I think they had a fantastic blend together. Anyway, guys, we're going a little extra long on this episode, but Kyle, why don't you wrap up your final thoughts on The Martian, and do you recommend it?
Yeah, I mean, I guess obviously at this point it's clear that I would recommend it. I think if you love sci-fi, if you just love a great movie, definitely go and see it. It's one of the smartest sci-fi movies I've seen in a long time, and it's good enough that it can be consumed by somebody who doesn't, who isn't very heady, that wouldn't want to read the book, I guess. It's somehow able to kind of bridge that gap for a mass audience, and I think that's why it's going to do really well. That combined with the performances and the approach and the fun of it all and everything, it's just a really enjoyable movie. And it is some of the best work, I think has been done by Matt Damon and Ridley Scott. So definitely check it out.
Alicia, what about you?
I would absolutely recommend this to everybody. I think this is a good movie to go see on a date, with your family. It's just, even though it's a sci-fi movie, it's got an overall message of hope and, persevering and not giving up when things look like nothing will work out. And Matt Damon does some of his greatest acting in it. The script is good. And, beautiful visuals, especially the shots of Mars. I really want to find out if they did that in a desert or what, because it was shot in Arabia. They made this boring planet look very much alive.
Yes. Apparently, the movie was shot in Arabia. That's what I've heard.
Oh, okay. Thank you.
So.
All right. So yeah, there's great scenery in it, and yeah, I think everybody should definitely go see it.
Okay. As do I. For my younger audience, I will say, it does have some language, so be cautious with that. There's also a little brief scene of some nudity, unfortunately, but the movie I do think it's a great movie for teenagers on up. This, what I'm about to say really ties into what Elijah Cost wrote in, asking us a question, and he asked me, where does The Martian rank in your favorite films of the year lists? And I gotta say, dude, for right now, it's actually number one for me. It really, really struck me, and it was a phenomenal movie. this is Ridley Scott back to his form. Matt Damon delivered a home run of a performance, especially in terms of an isolated performance, and it was so fantastic. Fantastic script from Drew Goddard. Wonderful cinematography, by the way, in terms of just capturing that red, really deep red kind of a landscape, and it was just phenomenal film, and I highly recommend it. Let's just before we wrap up, guys, let's just we did get a question, and I already answered it already. But where does The Martian rank on your favorite movies of the year list, Alicia?
Oh God, I need more time. I honestly cannot say for sure. I'm right now just trying to remember all the movies I've seen within the past year, because there have been a lot of good ones, that's for sure. But it's definitely somewhere near the top, I will say that.
Okay. What about you, Kyle?
I am too trying to think of which movies came out this year as opposed to last year. Sometimes things kind of blend together in my head. But I think it's definitely towards the top. Inside Out was fantastic. There was a lot of there was just a lot of good movies this year, and there's still more to come out. But
yeah.
It's definitely one of the best movies I've seen this year for sure. So
okay. Well, audiences, that's going to do it for our review on The Martian. Alicia, where can people find more of your work?
So I'm at realredreviews.wordpress.com, and real is spelled REEL. Also, screenrelish.com. It's a great site. We've got news, reviews, some features. So I write for them too. You can check me out there. And hopefully I will get to see more of Mr. Chris Reyes.
Reyes, R-E-Y-E-S.
Oh, Reyes. I'm sorry.
Everyone messes that name up, so.
Hey, there's a J in my name. I know that feeling.
but I don't have a J in Reyes. There's none of that stuff going on there, so.
Oh, that's a Y. I totally thought it was a J. I'm sorry. I like to have fun.
No, that's good. I like funny personalities. So, okay, so that was your outlets. Kyle, where can people find more of your work?
If you just Google my name, Kyle Prohaska, Prohaska, you'll find my Twitter handle, my Facebook, my website. So look me up.
Okay. Audiences, just to give you a heads up of what we got planned, this is Halloween month, so we're going to be reviewing some scary movies. The plan is Alien, Ridley Scott, another Ridley Scott movie, the original Ridley Scott film, I should say, the original King Kong, and let me think. We're also doing Dracula, I believe. I have to look back on the list. And also later on this week, expect our review for The Walk, the movie with Joseph Gordon-Levitt and directed by Robert Zemeckis, and also our continuation of the Star Wars commentaries with Return of the Jedi. That is coming very, very soon, so we've got that in the works with writer and director James Caan. Those have been a blast, and we'll also be continuing our J.J. Abrams retrospective series with Star Trek from 2009. So keep an eye on that sometime this month. Anyway, folks, I am your host, Chris, and on behalf of Alicia Johnson and Kyle Prohaska, I thank you all for joining my show. And on behalf of the crew, good night, everybody, and take care. Cheers.